Hello everyone, welcome to Zaref Game Dev. In this video, I am going to create the ZigZagBall game in Unity. So, as you have seen, it is a pretty basic game. There's our platforms, and the ball will spawn at the start at the platform, and the platform will start spawning in a random forward or left direction. And if we fall off the platform, we just lose. And the score increases if we move in the direction of the platform, and there are diamonds to collect. And we'll store the high score and show it, and it will show the number of games played. And we'll also collect the diamonds and store it in a variable. So it's just going to be a pretty basic game. So if you are a beginner or new to Unity, you can try it. So let's start creating the game. So as you can see, I opened a new scene and renamed it as gameplay. And for the camera, I set the resolution to portrait high and set up the direction light. So it's just 0, 20, -10, and it just looks good. So after that, the first thing we need to have. So let's create the start screen, which is the UI. So let's create a text mesh pro. We'll install everything, and afterwards we should have a pretty basic text. So the first text we are going to have is for the score, and let's just set it to 0, and it is positioned to the center and negative, and we'll position it from the top. And for the y, let's position it at -150, and let's change the size to 64, and let's it is already white. And now, so it is here, and if it changes size to 128, it already looks pretty good. And it's going to be a number, so we don't need anything else. And let's position it somewhere 35, and we'll position it -350. So there's our score, and after having the score, we'll need a diamond. So let's just call it diamond count. And similarly, this will be positioned towards the positive 350, and it's also going to have the same width and height. So let's increase its width. So let's increase its width to 400, and let's make it, or just to 250. Yep. And let's change the diamond count. So let's have it here only. And if we increase it to 400, and now let's change size. So this one's for the diamond count. Now to show it's a diamond, let's add an image. So let's add UI image, and we'll just call it diamond. And this image, let's rotate in the z-axis by 45. So it looks like this, and let's set its color to be red for now, and we'll position it towards the top, and not now but afterwards. So let's set its size to -125, so it is around here. And afterwards we'll position it at 250, 200, or 150. So that's how the diamond's going to look. We'll arrange its color afterwards, but we'll see how it's going. So this one. So that's how our first basic scene setup's going to look. Now afterwards, let's add the start panel. So we'll create an empty, and we'll call it start panel. And similarly, inside the start panel, we are going to have the start text. So which is, say, click to play. And let's increase its size. So instead of 400, let's make it 1200. And it's going to be centered. And if we position it towards the center, we are able to see it. And let's have it to the center. And afterwards, it should look something like this. And is it larger? Yep, let's set it to large. And let's change its size. So instead of 90, 40, 96. So it now looks a little bit good. And let's position it a little bit higher. So that's how it's going to say. And afterwards, we'll have two more parameters. The first one's going to be for the games, which is going to show how many games we have played. And the next one, it will be 64. And let's delete it. And let's position it negative 450 or maybe 500. And similarly, there'll be one more which is going to show the high score. And here instead of games, we'll show high score. And it is going to position it at negative 700. And let's not uh, let's change the size. So that's how the basic scene is going to look. Now we'll need to add the prefabs, the blocks, and the ball which we are going to play, and we need to set up the functionality. So after we have done the canvas, the directional light, and the main camera, the first thing we'll need is the game manager. So let's create an empty and let's call it game manager, and let's reset its transform, and we'll assign the game manager script to it. And afterwards, let's create the initial block. So the initial block is just going to be a 3D cube, and as you can see, let's reset its transform and scale it to 10 cross 10 cross 10. And it's going to have a box collider, so nothing else will be needed. And we need to set up our camera. So the camera is going to be orthographic with a size 20. And afterwards, let's position the camera. So 120. And where do we need to? So let's hide the game. So let's put at negative 35, 5 and 20. So that's how it's going to look, and it's almost positioned correctly. So afterwards, that's the camera of 25. Let's put at 35. So that's how it's going to look. Let's add a material to it. So let's create material, and we'll just call it tile material or the block material. And for this tile material, the color we are going to use, it's going to be, let me check. So material 47, and similarly, let's assign it cube, and we'll just call this initial block. So now it's already look good. Cube is also positioned correctly. let's position. Let's put. So let's see what we need to add. So let's add the player. So player is going to be a default sphere, similarly like the, and let's reset its position. So it will be somewhere inside, and afterwards let's add a rigid body to it, and we'll create a material for the, let's duplicate this style material, rename it as the ball material. Similarly, for the tile material, we have not set the emissions. So let's set the emission for the tile material. So let's have it emit. And the color we are going to select is, let's set this color, and let's decrease its intensity. So it looks good. So now as you can see, there's some depth, and if it is almost, afterwards what we'll need is set up the ball material. So the ball material is going to be a reddish, and let's rename the sphere as player, and similarly let's tag it as a player, and let's create a physics material. So for the physics material, let's call it at. And here we are just going to set the friction to 0, so it's friction. And for the initial, we'll add the physics material to the initial. And now for the player, we have the rigid body. Let's add the physics material to the player, and let's have it position in the y-axis. Let's not fall down, and it's going to use gravity. Let's create a new script, and we'll call it lock or the player script, and we'll add it to. And where's the player? For the ball material, let's create the material for the ball. So it's going to be, so that's for the power, 954. So that's for the ball, and afterwards let's have it as, and let's set the ball material to the player. Let's position the player. So almost, afterwards there's a ball, and it looks there's nothing else. Let's duplicate this one time. Which material will need now? Power material. So the power material is going to have to 5 and 75 and let's let's have it. Let's see for now. Let's add it to here. How it's red one. This is the initial platform material. So we have our block setup, and afterwards let's put main camera instead of negative. Let's go and we'll need to put it down. See, for the player, what's the axis? E5. So that's how it is. And now let's duplicate this initial and we'll rename it as block, and let's position it as 000, and for the accent here how it's going, that's where it's going to be. And for the initial, let's set this to 3 almost correctly. And for the player, instead of -5, let's have player is going to move in forward direction. The basic scene we have done is setup. Now we need to save this block as a pre. We'll start editing this block. So this block has the material correctly set up, the box collector. Need to add a rigid body because we are going to first it's going to be kinematic, and we'll add a script to it, which is going to be a block script. And let's add the camera follow script. And last script we are going to, so the player is just going to have for the game end conditions. Afterwards, I've done everything this. Let's create a diamond. So diamonds early, it's going to be a cube. Let's create a 3D object. Let's reset its transform. Position it 45, 45, 45. Material, we have already created the power material. Let's go as diamond. Let's position it above the blocks. So block set 0, diamond add 06 block, and thing, maybe we won't need the shadows are, so let's have the shadows. So that's how the diamond's going to be. And for the diamond, check the trigger, and we need to add a tag of diamond. Do we have its tag? Yep. And it has a tag of diamond. Block's not going to need any tag, but we'll save it as a prefab, and let's save the lighting settings. So Let's hit play, and for now there should not be any errors. And that's how our game is going to look at the beginning. And let's set up this diamond's color. It's side diamond. Let's set up its colors like the diamond. So that diamond's look. And we have the ball set up. Now what we need to do is we need to on the platforms and start the game. And let's this game and the high score a little bit downwards of negative 700. Let's do. And similarly for the games, let's add let's have and high score the size to 54 so we can see everything correctly. And we need to able to show the diamonds, so everything we are going to get from the player prefs. And when we click we should be able to start the player moving. So we have all our prefabs, all our scripts, and yep, now we'll start editing. So the first thing we'll create is the camera follow script. So we are just going to find the player, calculate the offset, and every update will just add that offset to the current position, or we'll just lerp it so it smoothly translates. So let's go inside Visual Studio and let's open the camera follow script. So for the camera follow script, what we are going to do is let's have a public bool game over, because after the game is finished we don't need to follow. Oh, and let's have vector 3 offset, and afterwards we'll have the game object for the player and the amount of speed we are going to. And let's set it up in the awake. So is game over is going to be false. Here's going to be game object dot find, and let's just type the name. And similarly the speed's going to 25f, and let's set the offset the trans dot position minus player dot transform dot position. And instead of update, call it inside the fixed update. And what we'll do is first we'll check if the if is game over, then we'll just return. And afterwards let's get we need to let's set the transform position B. Transform dot translate translation and space relative to. So let's just set the transform dot position. It's going to be v3 dot lerp, and we are going to lerp from transform dot position to transform dot plus offset, not transform dot position. We are going to get it from the layer dot transform dot position plus off, and in the amount of speed into time dot delta time. So it will set up the position. and camera follow should be done. Now let's add for the block. So the block does not have much scripts, but we are just going to have a collision exit, and let's if collision dot collider dot compare tag, and if the player has exited. So this one's for the block, and if the player has exited, then the first thing we are going to do is game manager dot instance, and we need to set up the game manager, and let's call the fall down method here first. And here fall down, the first thing we are going to do is set body dot is schematic to false, and use gravity to. So it should be done, and we'll destroy the game object after 2. So if a player passes from exits from that fall down, we'll just call this, and we'll do an invoke, and will what we are going to invoke is the fall down, and we'll invoke after 0.2, and we'll increase the score, but let's go inside the player. So the player also does not have much things, so the first thing we are going to have is the boolean, and we'll call it has game finish. And similarly in the start we are going to set has game finish to false, and inside the update we'll do if physics dot raycast, and we are going to raycast dot v3 dot down to 2f, and if we are not nothing is colliding at the raycast, then we'll set the velocity. So get component rigid body dot velocity equals to v3 dot down into 25. So it's going to move in the downward direction, and afterwards if the game has not finished, then the first thing we are going to do is as game finished is set to true, and let's uh, get its get component rigid body dot const is equals, so we'll set its constant to none so it can move in the y direction, and afterwards we'll destroy it after 5 seconds. And before that we need to set the camera to not move, so for that we have created the game over. So before doing has game finish, after setting up the constraints, so game object dot find game object with tag, and it has a tag of main camera, and inside the main camera we'll get the camera follow component, and for that camera follow we'll set is game over to true, so it does not start following, and that's it for the update. And afterwards for the diamond, so for the diamond it's going to be a trigger, and if dot compare tag of diamond, Then we'll just destroy the other dot game object. So that's it for the camera follow and the player. Now let's set up the, it's going to be pretty large. And before setting it up, let's create a, so let's create a game object player, have the awake function, and let's create the public static game manager instance. And first let's set up the instance. So if instance equals to the instance is as destroy the key object. And afterwards add have variables. So let's just create the variables. So let's have the variables for the start panel and prefab, diamond prefab. Afterwards we'll need text, and also size field. Let's have the temporary text, and the first text is going to be for this text, the diamond text, and the score text, and the last one we are going to need is for the game. We have the game player, and next will is move forward. Load speed, what speed we are going to no booleans for the has game started, has game finished. And afterwards we'll need an integer for the score. We'll need and 3 for the last one. So let's set everything up in the, so the score is going to be the 0, speed is going to F, and diamonds, create those integers. So diamonds, diamond, have it here. So after score for the diamond, I score and games. So let's get the diamonds. With player dot has key. Let's get the diamond. Yeah, I am one. And if it has it, then we'll do player prefs dot get int, and we'll get the diamond. Else we'll have, and similarly the high score, that's, and instead of diamond we are just going to get that. Let's copy this again. Instead of high score, just call game. Similarly, we'll set the games, and afterwards, that's the text. So first, let's set up the game text. For text, have this text dot text dot to and diamonds text dot text is equal to diamonds dot to string. And afterwards, we have the games text dot text equals games played plus games dot to string. And similarly, let's copy this and set dot to. We have the high score dot to string. It's going to be the high score. So the text is set up, and afterwards we'll need to spawn the objects. So before spawning the objects, let's create the update function. So let's add the update, and first thing we'll check if the game is do if put dot get now down of the game is finished and we are pressing the button, then do unity engine dot scene management dot scene manager dot load scene. Just reload the scene. If you are not pressing anything, then we'll return. Afterwards, we'll check if the game has started. And if the game has not started, and similarly, we'll check for the input dot get mouse button down 0. And first thing we'll do is set has game started to true. Start panel dot set active is going to be false, and dot get component rigid body dot velocity is going v3 dot right. So it's going to start moving, and afterwards will spawn. And if all of these conditions there, in the player stack, player dot get component rigid body dot velocity is b. If we are moving forward, then forward is the right direction, then forward v3 dot back, here it is back, else to v3 dot right, the forward direction, and we said is move forward to not is, so that should be it. And there's no else. Let's go inside Unity and let's see what things we need to do first. So for the game manager, let's add the start panel and the core text, the diamond text, diamond core text, and first let's hit play and let's see what happens. So if we are clicking object reference, we have not added the player. So we added the player, tag with player, manager. Let's see where we do some at the prefab block. Inside the game manager, are we using diamond or the block pre? Object reference is player dot get. Oh, we didn't get the player. So for getting the player, we didn't got the player. So player is going to game. Let's just add the player was not set up in the awake. So now if we hit play, if we click, works correctly, and there is not any condition anymore going to work now. But let's see what else will. Oh, so it working. Let's see is there any problem with the diamond. So this diamond is triggered, and whenever player collides with, maybe we have not added the player script. Yep, the player script added. Uh, add player script, and similarly in camera, add the camera script. Block should have the block script, and manager should have the game manager script. If we hit play, we are moving. The blocks also falling down, and it will get destroyed afterwards. And what else is needed? So we need to update the diamonds, update the score, update the games, and spawn the blocks. Already played a little bit before, so that's why it's getting from there. So let's now spawn the blocks, and we'll add the diamond prefab and the block prefab, the game map. And let's see anything else. We have the initial, we have the block, and we have diamond. Start panel is already working correctly. The else is already working. Play. I'm also getting the player prefs, which I've done it before. I played 91 games and the high score. So let me now hit play. Let me. Didn't show. Okay, we are not updating the games. So let's do that, and we need to spawn new blocks. So let's go inside Visual Studio. Let's create all the functions we are going to need. Let's go in the camera follow first. We are not following the camera when the player falls. Okay. Similarly, fall down, we'll need to increase this. We'll call it inside the game manager. So let's create the increase score in the game manager. So we are going to do in the game manager dot update score. And let's increase the game manager get called update score, and inside the update score is to score plus plus x x say this to. So there is nothing going on here. Let's do the public void hit diamond, and similarly for the update diamonds we'll do diamonds plus player prefs dot setting diamond 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 for diamonds. And we'll set the diamond text. Our text is going straight. So the score and the diamond should increase. So let's see if it is working. And that should increase for the block. We are going to call the game man dot instant dot update score. And similarly for the player, whenever it collides with a diamond, we are going to manage that. So the diamond and score is increasing. The camera follows also works correctly. And we need to set up the game over. So game over. So let's see if we are increasing the score. So the score and the diamond should increase by count of, and yep, it increased, but this, yeah, I don't know why it was on exit. Got exited for 3 seconds, so it collided and it got exit collided. After this, we'll need to add the game over screen, and we are already getting the player preps, and the score is also going to increase. So let's start spawning the platform. So it's going to be inside the game manager, and let's set up the game over. So the game over is just going to update for the number of games played, and it. So after the update diamond, let's void inside the game over. First, we are going to start panel. It shows start panel, and if score is greater than high score, we'll update the high score. Updating the player prefs. And afterwards we'll update the high score text is 4. So we updated the high score, so we need to use the text. And we need to set the games. So the player prefs set in. Here we have the and set it game. We have set the player prefs. Afterwards, first thing we need is to set the platform. We need to set in the size in the last one. So let's get the last position. Let's get this. So size is going to block free dot. Afterwards, we'll run 10 block. It's going to be let's create that. It will just spawn platform and all this. So let's first 20 plat. Hmm. 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 Cancel. So the game is finished and inside the spawn platform and temporary integer. Either it's going to be 0, it's going to be 1. So let's get the where we are going to spawn. V3 and to be the last full. And if temp equals to 0, post.x as with size else will do post 3. So it will increase the position. Afterwards, we'll instantiate the block prefab. Instantiate the block prefab at but or maybe the position afterwards. Dot identity and similarly dot range from 4 5 4 25% chance and diamond get diamond fab add those up left and let's have the rotation as fab on dot rotation. So it should spawn 20 platforms. If we hit play, there are 20 platforms. Okay. Yeah, did we set up the game? Oh, we'll set it up afterwards. But let's see if it is working for now. There is a problem with the deck. We'll date it up. Game has not started. So we have spawned the platforms. So our block, there is a block. So we are updating this for only for camera follow. We are updating it, and for the player, yeah, I'm not doing the game over. Game manager dot and now the game should finish. Similarly, inside the game manager, we have the platform spawning after a set interval. So we'll set it up when we click. So when the game is started, create a function which will invoke the spawn platform definite interval or whatever it. So let's do that. The player should also work correctly. Inside the game manager, everything's used, and now we just need to, when the game is started, after setting up the speed, we'll create a function which is going to be a public void. There's no need to be public void block spawn, and what it will do is invoke repeating, and we are going to repeat the platform. After that's 0.2f and 0.2f. When the game is started, it will start spawning the platform and will create the blocks. So it should start spawning the blocks and the game should be able to fit. Let's go inside Unity. That's it. So the score should increase, the diamond should increase, and there's a problem. Okay, there's a problem with he's moving forward. I am 190% sure there's a problem with the variable. Before we set up that, let me show you the fix. So the first thing we are going to see, has game finished is false, has game started is false, and is moving forward is set. Now let's see, the game should work perfectly fine and we should be able to see complete game running correctly is working. Our diamonds are getting collected. Even though the score is also increasing and the blocks are, and there are no blocks getting whenever we are regular interval, it's get, we are having the high score and the games played. So that was it for this video. So if you guys like the video and if you want to see more games, and if you want to have any recommendations so for what the game I played, so comment it below and like the channel, like and subscribe, and see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching.